Well, hello everyone. It's not the Grammys or anything. I'm just a little dressed up for an event I have after here, but it is the Technical Explanation Show. And today, my guest is Butch Blankenship. How you doing, Butch?
I am doing fantastic. Excited to be with you.
Yeah, and I try not to put dates or anything on this, but I unfortunately always do. But it is the day after the Ohio State Wrestling Championship, so I think we have a lot to talk about today,
It's
other than
like
your story and stuff. But
right. It's like the day after Christmas in Ohio.
yeah, it is. It is. So we've got a lot to unpack. But before we get into that, I've got to work with you a couple of times this year through the Ohio Athletic Committee events. We met like virtually before that. So if you don't mind, tell the folks where you're at in Ohio, where that's located, and about how long you've been a wrestling official.
I currently live in Archbold. We've been here for 14 years. My wife and I moved here from a small town in Stryker where we met in high school. We have two children, Hannah and Noah. Hannah's 26. She just recently became a licensed paramedic. And then Noah is 21. And they each have significant others and think they have their life all figured out and where they want to go. So
yeah,
things are good.
And we owe Amy, your wife, and Noah, your son, a little credit. They helped us get set up for this, right?
Yeah, because I'm technically challenged.
Well, this is technical explanation, so I have technical difficulties as well. Yeah. Tell me a little bit. I mean, so you're official. How did you come to when was your first interaction with wrestling?
My first interaction with wrestling was in junior high. I went to school in Bryan through junior high and then went to Stryker as a freshman when my mom got married to my stepdad. And so I was looking for something to do after football season because I learned early on that God has a sense of humor. When I was a kid, I could remember wanting to grow up to be 6 foot tall, playing in the NFL for the Chicago Bears. So as life would have it, I grew up to be 5'11", moved to a town that didn't have football, and now I work for the Green Bay Packers. So it's just life. So, but anyways, junior high was my first experience, and I can honestly tell you that from the get-go, I have never experienced anything that has taxed your body and your mind and your spirit as much as wrestling did. I remember the first couple of practices, the after of that, not being able to walk very easily. I mean, it was such a shock to the system coming from football and then being in wrestling for the very first time and not knowing what to do. So I can't say it was love at first sight and love at first experience, but it was definitely something that got your attention very quickly. So I was not a very good wrestler. I was extremely average, is what I like to tell people. So I never made it out of sectionals. And sectionals for us in Northwest Ohio, you had like Delta, and at the time we had Wasion.
You had a really tough. Well, let's be fair. You had probably the toughest sectional. I mean, it still is. That is the district is an absolute nightmare.
It's a beast. Yeah. And just coming out of Rossford sectional, I got to work that this year again and had just a great time. But so again, I was extremely average, not very good. But when my high school career came to an end, I didn't want to be done with the sport. So a friend of mine got me an application from OHSAA, and I filled out the application, took an online test. They said, "Congratulations, you're now a Class 2 official."
Yeah, a little different now, but yeah.
Yeah, and here you go, sink or swim. And so there was a lot of sinking in my early years. So yeah, but it's been a great joy as of late, especially. So that it's just a kind of a long story, but I think starting out being an official, I just wanted to continue to be with the sport. I still had friends that were in it, and you kind of set goals a little bit. And my goal at the beginning was not to be the worst one at a tournament.
Okay.
Or just try to survive, sort of thing. But to be fair, I didn't put in the kind of work that you needed to put into to become a good official, a very good one, actually. So there were a lot of times where I was very discouraged, and for whatever reason, I guess I'm bullheaded, I just didn't quit. And then I can remember one time there was a really bad situation that I had, and it was like, do I really want to do this any longer? And I I went home, and that was when our daughter was really little, and I took a sock, one of her baby socks, and I put it into my pants. And anytime that I got in a sticky situation or whatever, I would reach into that pocket and feel it and remember what was really important in life. So that kind of got me through a few things. But then I was downsized in 2008 from my company that I worked at, and the only thing available was second shift. So for the next 6 years after that, from '08 to 14, I worked second shift, and it's really difficult to try to do wrestling. So I attended the meetings the best I could and did very few matches. So then when I got the opportunity to come back on the first shift, I really made the commitment to do the things that needed to happen for me to get better. So that's when I really started to kind of take off. So I'm a late bloomer. I've been doing it 31 years, but I don't have like the prestige of guys that have done, 10 or 15 state tournaments that have been around for 30 years. I'm, again, a late bloomer. So I've got a window here that I'm trying to make my mark in the sport, trying to promote the sport, trying to bring other people along in it too. So I've got more good years ahead of me. I really feel like I'm in a good place. I really do. So.
Something though that you say there is you are a really good promoter of the sport. And actually this weekend, and maybe I'm just a little bit more in tune to it, but I saw a lot of officials doing things that they don't typically do. A lot of Facebook lives from on the mats talking about, hey, we got this meeting. Like you kind of get an idea, like they don't just show up and come to the mat and award 2 points for green, 1 for red for escape. Like there's a lot going on. And I think if people more like you, Walter Starks, dude, he knocked it out of the park this week. And maybe I'm biased because he gave the show a shout out, but if we want to have different results than the ones that we've been getting as far as getting more people interested in becoming officials, then we've got to start doing things way differently. And so you and I have talked about this. You always take a picture, always before and like during. It's great because it shows people, where you're at, one, that you're always doing this, so it does a lot for the sport.
It was very strange on Saturday not to be at a wrestling tournament somewhere.
Yeah.
So it was like, what do I do with myself? And so did a few things around the house, and I took a nap.
Yeah, and now with the state tournament on Sunday, because the finals usually are on Saturday, so you were at the finals yesterday, and then you just got, what did you get in the mail today?
I got NCAA tickets in our email, so we're headed to Detroit on Wednesday.
You'll be back at wrestling in no time. Then it's locking hand seasons after that. I don't know.
Yeah, and then we're doing the Wrestling for Autism thing, helping out with that too in early April. So we'll see you there, and there's a lot going on. But you're talking about doing things differently, and I think there are so many things that are happening differently now in officiating that happened 30 years ago when I had an open book test and they said, here you go, sink or swim. We're really focusing on promoting the sport, promoting officiating, but also mentoring, I think, is a huge deal. I look back, and when I was 19, 20, even 25 years old, I really didn't have any mentors. My thought was if I went to a tournament and did my job and left and nobody knew I was there, then that was a good thing. Kinda, but it's a two-edged sword. People have to know who you are also, not just, I wonder who that guy was. So I wasn't very good at promoting myself, but I didn't have any mentors either. So I think us as officials, mentoring some of these younger guys, even guys that have been around for 4, 5, 6 years, that you can see in them that they want to get better. They want to work on the stuff that's important to make them better. Take them under your wing and invite them to some tournaments with you when there's an opening. I've had so many opportunities just from pairing up with a good friend of mine. He worked the state tournament this last weekend, and we'll carpool quite a bit. Kelly Ducey. So Kelly, he and I, we live like a block apart. So our relationship has gotten actually really good as of late because he's our president of our association. I'm the rules interpreter. There were times where I really didn't get along with him very well at all because, again, he was a junior high coach and I was not a very good official. So we were at odds quite often. But being both officials now and striving to be the best versions of us that we can be. We have a big, huge common ground, and we talk the same language. We do the same things. He may see things differently. There's lots of conversations that go on when you go to a tournament and come back from a tournament. You discuss situations, you discuss, bulletins that come from the state on different situations. So there's so many great conversations that happen just on your travels to and from. And then oftentimes after a long tournament, you find a place to grab a bite to eat and a beer, and then you have more conversations about stuff. So the mentoring, I think, is a huge part of this crisis of lack of officials that I think is being recognized. And so I want to be that person that helps mentor some of the younger guys. And just to grow the sport.
I think you're right on. I'd mentioned, then you kind of reiterated, doing some things differently. And what we know too is if we're trying to get younger officials, then we got to kind of understand where they're coming from, right? This year we had two of them that just wrestled, I think one finished second and one finished fourth in the state yesterday. And they have another year of officiating still in high school, right? Now a high schooler these days, expectations of how quickly you can maybe climb the ranks might not be the same as what ours was, right? And I'm not saying that that's right or that's wrong, but we kind of have to acknowledge that and understand they're going to have to see progression, or else they might get tired or say, what the heck, throw their arms up, right? So, giving these folks, the mentor to help them understand, look, it's not going to happen overnight, and maybe guiding them through the process of how to expedite it within reason, right? So that when you get to your goal, you're set up for success, right? You don't want to get there and, like you said, try to tread water. But those are the things that we have to think as we try to get younger. We're going to have to figure out what's the right level of engagement for them to stay hungry, as you said.
Yep. And we just had an officiating class end about 3 weeks ago, and we had 9 graduates. 2 of the graduates were adults. One of them was actually a classmate of mine at Bryan High School. He'd been talking about getting into the sport, and he kept seeing posts of mine, and he's like, I just need to, do this or shut up. So we got him in, and he's enjoying it. He's back in the sport. He's always loved the sport. He's just looking for an avenue to get back into it, and this has really helped a lot. The other one is
those posts.
What's that?
Those posts, even if it gets that one, I've got 2 signed up for the Wrestle Against Autism. We have 28 going through the class, 5 women, but 2 of them are from seeing my Facebook post and just like, why don't I do that? Like, they really work. Sorry to cut you off, but
no, that's fine. But his name's Troy Underwood, and he was a Marine, and once a Marine, always a Marine, right? So he's got the little stubby ear. So I told him he's going to get a lot of street cred just walking into a place with a stubby ear. But he lives up like in the northern part. He lives not very far from Michigan. And something really interesting this last year is Michigan is experiencing even worse what we're experiencing in Ohio. And they are so desperate for officials that they're canceling events. And we were contacted by an AD from Dundee, Michigan. And, Dundee is a pretty reputable school.
Yeah.
So 3 of us went up there and worked a junior high tournament, and he just raved about having us up there and said, I'm going to keep your contact. So the idea is if we have guys that are living close to that borderlands area with Michigan, we can make inroads there and get them some matches too. And so it's not just you're landlocked in Ohio and you're stuck, traveling an hour south to try to get a match. No, we're going to try to foster these relationships up with Michigan ADs, and the reciprocity is very easy. So it's not a huge deal to get these guys to have matches up there and get some experience.
Well, that's genius though, too. Think about it, because the officiating is a little bit different in Michigan.
A little bit.
Not as much. But like, Ohio Athletic Committee, we bring officials out drive all the way to Youngstown, the other side of the state from Michigan. We got folks from West Virginia that'll come up. So like, if you're on the border there, that's going to help you learn different styles of wrestling and become even better, right? Because usually if you're in that state, you're calling the calls how they call it, right?
Yeah, and we've had the officials meeting. We've met with the coaches before a tournament starts and said, all right, we're from Ohio, and we get the sort of thing. And we hate to see Ohio guys come up here, but they like the job that we do, and they like the consistency. And we talk about the differences between Michigan and Ohio and the way we call things. And what was really interesting is one of the coaches came up to one of our guys afterwards and said, the next time you're up here, I want you to call things just like Ohio. And he's like, what do you mean? He goes, you know what I mean. He said stalling and things like that. He's like, are you sure? He's like, yes. So, it's we talk the same language, we do the same thing. It's just there may be an accent here, an accent there.
There's different dialects. That's all it is. It's
Yeah.
like the Midwest, Ohio, whatever the heck we are, because we're not Midwest and we're not East Coast. We're just here.
Yeah.
But that's all it is. We're all the same wrestling community. It's just we do things a little bit differently. And it's really eye-opening when I get to talk with officials. I love, obviously, my brother's in Ohio, but when you talk to other folks and you learn it's 2022 and in some states they still don't have mentorships and it's still taking the tests like you did. And then it's like, hey, good luck. That's not a recipe for success. And I talk a lot about being set up for success. And, what are we, how long are we expecting those folks to last if they're not getting reinforced that you're doing an okay job? You're doing good.
If they don't have a mentor, they have bad experiences, they have last 3 to 5 years, maybe. The difficult part is getting someone to say yes and making the commitment to be one of the officials. The thing that we need to do is just mentor these people and make sure that they stay, because that's the battle, is to get them to stay. So I think we're headed in the right direction with stuff like that, recognizing these things. It's such officiating is such an interesting aspect of the sport. You don't have necessarily the time commitment involved with the coach. The coaching end of things is very every day, a couple hours a day, and then Saturdays and then Sundays and stuff like that. Officiating is a bit less, but it's really as much time as you want to put into it also. I can't tell you how many meetings that we've been to, how much road time we have going places, but it's something that I'm not ready to trade in for yet. I just really enjoy it. There's friendships that I have from way back in high school. Guys are coaching. I've had guys that I wrestled in high school, their sons have wrestled and I've officiated them. So there's lots of back and forth, lots of teasing, lots of camaraderie, lots of laughs. It's something that is pretty special. And I
go ahead.
One of the things that has really I've identified to get better. A friend of mine, Tim Claybaugh, said that his officiating really jumped when he learned the penalty chart. And so I studied it. I got pretty good handle on it. There's times where I still have an issue with misconduct and the proper hand signal for that. but the thing that I think has really helped me a lot is mechanics. I don't want to say I'm in love with mechanics, but it's pretty close. I'm in love with trying to be as consistent as I can with my mechanics. And there's a wrestling official that does a lot of college matches, Angel.
Yeah.
And he has told this story that, a family member of his is deaf. And he wants his family member, even if they're sitting in the top row of some stadium, he wants that family member to know what's going on with his mechanics. And really, mechanics, if you think about it, is you're just telling the story of the match with your hands and your signals. So if you lived in a world where there was no sound, you would still be able to understand what's going on with that match if you have good mechanics, if you have good hand signals, and if you're consistent. So in the end, it's red and it's green, and you're telling the story of the match with your hands and your mechanics. So that's kind of what I've really drilled down on every year for the last 3-4 years, is trying to get better, more consistent with mechanics. And if I go to a match and I'm guilty of watching the officiating almost more than I'm watching the wrestling itself, especially in college. I've picked up so much from those guys. We do things differently, but their mechanics are spot on every time.
They have to be, because you might be on track wrestling, for a tournament. They're on national television every time, and there's only, unless it's a tournament, there's 10 matches. So, that's the major leagues right there. But
it is.
You've already given really two good nuggets there. First one, I really like the sock thing in your pocket there, because it's all about centering yourself, right? Like you're out
Yeah.
there to do something, and something that can bring you right back to, what's important or why you're doing what you're doing. Because Simon Sinek, I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a big guy, like he's a speaker, right? Like self-help guy, brilliant. But he always says, start with why. Like the best companies don't start with what we do. They start with why we do it. Everything else flows from there. So for you, the reason that you're officiating is for your family, right? And for your fun, for your own self too. But I don't know, I wanted to give you a shout out there.
Wrestling really in a nutshell is family. And it's such a unique group of people that are involved in wrestling. You'll have some bad eggs from time to time, but the vast majority of people in the sport get it. They know that we're a kind of a niche sport, that we're not mainstream like basketball and football, baseball. So we have to be there for one another. We have to be family for one another. And I can't tell you how many different things throughout the years where we've shown up to support, fellow officials or a coach that may have passed, or an official's wife that passed away. You show up for the viewing and, you just let them know that they're not alone. So wrestling is truly unique in that, and it's such a family-oriented sport. I mean, you think about how much time people spend together at a tournament. Growing up, the kids wrestle together and they go from biddies to junior high to high school. And these families that spend all this time together consider themselves families, oftentimes more than, a distant family from, another town or whatever. They spend so much time together. So
you're absolutely right. I mean, at the school where I get to coach, we say it's a Panther family. We used to be a larger Panther family, but we're getting back there. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, just all the memories and stuff. One memory that just came, you said Bryan, Ohio, like 3 times right now. And I can remember when I was a kid, I loved to go to that tournament because they had the biggest trophies ever. And it was a gigantic grizzly bear, right? They're purple and yellow, right, Bryan?
Yep.
To match you back up in the hallway, and you'd walk with a piece of paper next to your 8-year-old opponent. How long you been wrestling? That kind of, but you remember it like it was just yesterday. 2 weeks ago, I was in Columbus, and I'm tearing down the tournament, and the guy says to me, "Hey, tell your dad I said hello. This is my name. I wrestled him back in 1978." I'm like, "What?" Like that, It is a family, all these memories and things. And I don't know about you, but I remember like every match, that I've wrestled and all that stuff too. So
well, for me, there weren't very many, and they were pretty forgettable.
Well, mine are too, but they're up there. They're up there.
Yeah, but it's like I said, it's something that I just was drawn to, and I wasn't ready to give it up as a graduating senior. And you were talking about the students. So of the 9 that we had graduated from our class, 7 of them were students. Really? One of them was a senior from Montpelier, but all the other, I believe, are underclassmen. One of them is a freshman. Wow. And he placed 8th at Columbus yesterday for Tenora, Aiden Helmke. So
okay. They got a good, yeah. Tenora was another tough school in D3 in that district, man.
Yeah, the Blue Iron boys. Yep, they were tough too. They were a little bit after me, but yeah. So these kids, what we try to do, kind of coming back to them, is another way I look at it too is some guys will say, well, they're not going to stick with it. Well, you never know what's going to happen when they have kids, or they can always come back. They've done the hard part. They've got their license, even if it goes into arrears or it's not current. All they have to do is contact a local association and say, hey, I want to pull my license back up, take an online test, and then you're right back at it again. So these kids that are, freshmen all the way through high school, and they go to college, they can work these junior high tournaments and the biddy tournaments on weekends, and they can make $100, $200 pretty easily. And that's spending money for them. That's the difference between, having Totino's or actually going out for supper.
That was college, man. That's how I got through college. And you know what? I let mine lapse too. And I got it back, there's a big gap in there. But if you don't start the race, you can't finish it. And if you don't know kind of what you're getting into, I think some of them are just kind of feeling it out. They might get into it, like, I really like the competitive side more than this, and they might be done, and that's okay. But at least we gave them the shot, right?
Yeah.
And then you've got others that I talk to that I know are money motivated. So they're figuring out, all right, I got to wrestle on Friday and Saturday, but I'm officiating on Sunday because I need to make some money. So
we had some kids that did that this year. To get their mat time, they wrestled on Friday or Saturday, and then they came and officiated with us on Sunday. We watched them, we guided them along and helped them out. And also there was another freshman that took our class in June last year, Corbin Kimmel from Wayne Trace. He placed at 106.
So look at that though. So you just named in your class 2 state placers that are officials, and I named 2. So that's, if you want to get on the podium in Columbus, Ohio, and you're a high school wrestler and you're watching this, you can significantly increase your odds. I'm just saying.
Oh, let me blow your mind with this one.
Okay.
Since we have been doing high school wrestlers getting their Class 3 officiating license, Defiance Association has had 6 state champions.
I'm just saying the proof that correlation does not imply causation, but there's a correlation there.
No, but you can't ignore it. I mean, these high level kids want to become higher level.
They want to become the best they absolutely can. They're looking for any possible way.
They're looking for an edge. They're looking for education. Why did this get called this certain way? But Hunter Long was the latest one that became a state champion out of our association. So he's from Wayne Trace also.
To go off of that, like, we've got kids, right? They're under 18, some are 18, maybe a little after, and they're going the extra step. And this is kind of my call. I'm a coach, so I can do this. Kind of like, we need more coaches to be more involved so that they understand how the officials think. I mean, just going to the meeting, getting on the list of stuff that comes out. I think, what was it? It was the week before junior high conference. So that would have been like the second or third week of February. And my first email I get from Toby, right? Rules interpreter and everything. And it was like, guys, we're not doing weigh-ins like we have before, right? And so you're starting to, now you're like, okay, this next one, this is how the weigh-ins should be, right? Or if there's another point of emphasis, if you're a coach, why wouldn't you want to know what's going out to all 400 some officials in the state and what they're going to be looking for? So, I Rob Jennings, who was on here earlier, and I didn't know this, but his high school coach and my dad, who was a high school coach at the same time, like, apparently they went to all the meetings, and he's like, that's why those coaches had more success than others. And I didn't know that. I think my dad was just going just to figure out what rules he could bend, because that's my dad.
He's a good coach, right?
He was something. But that's really, you're right. Any extra, I mean, if someone said I could give you a hand up and maybe it's this, or this information is a little edge, why wouldn't you take it if you like winning?
Exactly. And these kids that are taking the class are learning so much. And one of the kids is, his coach was one of the students also. And he would ask questions, and it was interesting to frame his question from the coach's point of view. So, and it's, you don't have to be an licensed official to come to our meetings. I mean, you can be a coach. They're open meetings. It's not some secret society.
Yeah.
It is what it is. We've had coaches throughout the years come and sit at our meetings. Before I was involved, when I was in high school, let's see, Rex Lundgren from Liberty Center would go to the Defiance Association meetings. And so would Charlie Forward.
Another great program. Just saying.
So would Charlie Forward. And
from Archbold, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Tell me about their program. I mean, they just reload every year.
So what was interesting was I only heard this secondhand about Charlie and Rex getting into arguments about stuff. So it was, it sounds like they added a lot of color to the meetings at the time, but yeah, it's they're open meetings. Coaches can come to them. We have them posted online. It's not very hard to find them. So, and I'm sure Lima is the same way. Lima Finley, coaches go to those meetings also. It's interesting, the communications that come to coaches and communications that come to the officials and how they may be different, or a coach may get some communication from the state that the officials don't. And we're trying to play catch up, and we know enough of one another that we kind of share information from time to time also. But we just want to be on the same page and call things the same from Northeast to Northwest and, all the way down south. So, and that's the whole point. I know we had just a lot of work went into making us where we are statewide, that I'm riding the coattails on, and I'm benefiting from all the hard work that people did before me to establish these local organizations and, the officials organizations, the state organization. So everyone works together and we call things the same from all over the state. So there's been a lot of people before me. I just want to continue to add to it and just to continue to make it better for everyone, even pay it forward. So that's kind of where I'm at with my career right now. So
let's talk a little bit about your postseason. So you did the Rossford district, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And you did some OAC stuff too. So you did a district, right?
I tried, but that was a long story. It was my 50th
well, where were we
birthday.
at? The duels then? What?
It was Perrysburg we were at right after the pit. So I turned 50 this year, and so what better place to be than on a wrestling mat? So I had a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday scheduled on my 50th birthday weekend, and my wife thought that I shouldn't have scheduled so much. So I couldn't understand why she was so angry, but she fessed up and said it was supposed to be a surprise. My brother and sister were coming from Illinois to come up to celebrate with me. So I actually gave up the OAC event at Clay High School just to be.
Well, that's all right. That's way more important, man. So
it was. That's a long story too. That's a side story, but yeah, it's really interesting. But I can't remember where we were at.
Well, I was just trying to compare, like, what are your thoughts on some of the stuff that the OAC is doing at the grade school level? Because obviously the whole goal for the OAC is to prepare the folks for the big show in the OHSAA, which some of the pictures that came out of yesterday, and if you look at that and go look at other state tournaments, it sounds conceited, but if you look at the pictures, it's really, we put on a really, really good show. I mean, there's fireworks. I mean, the video before that gives you goosebumps, all the way to the national anthem that woman sung at, I mean, it's a really, really good show. But if you flip that around and that's your first time as a kid, a young kid, could be a freshman, could be a senior, first time walking out of that tunnel to the 3 mats or even out to the 10 or 12 mats, it's a big culture shock, right? Yeah. So the idea for the OAC is to get them down to Youngstown, get them over to Youngstown, walk through a little bit smaller of a venue, but be ready to make that jump. Are you seeing that when you're officiating high school? Are you seeing some of these kids come in a little bit more advanced, a little more confident?
We kind of talked about that a little bit earlier, in that the way these kids are wrestling and the exposure that they have to high level stuff. I kind of think that most kids have about 200 matches in them. And before they say, I've wrestled a lot. But then you've got the kids that go beyond, that really make an impact in the sport and go far. But us as officials, we need to get on our game, because these kids are coming to junior high and they're coming to high school and they are so polished. They're so good at what they do, and they're driven. We need to step up our game. And so working these tournaments, the OACs and stuff like that, it really has given me an opportunity to just see, we as officials need to step up and really put the best product, the best version of us out there that we can, because these kids are coming and they have been coming for a long time, and you see that. But I think you're going to see more and more, especially with the girls aspect of things coming along too. The female wrestling is where the growth is at in wrestling right now. And there's no two ways around that. It just is. And these girls, my wife and I watched the Olympic trials last year, and awesome. Watched those girls. They can flat wrestle. I mean, it was so joyful watching them compete and just be at such a high level. And so
I've never enjoyed being up at 4:35 in the morning to watch wrestling as much as I did for the Olympics this year. I mean, it was I was on a different schedule, but I mean, that was must-see TV. And to do that with only 2 Olympic cycles, and you're beating Japan, who's had women's wrestling for, Yoshida had 4 Olympic gold medals before she lost them. Yep. So that's twice as many cycles, and we've caught them. I mean, we have caught them. Yeah. And we're just reloading now. So that, I mean, you're right. It's a great time.
There's great ambassadors of the sport of women's wrestling, like Mensa Stock. Tamira is such a wonderful spirit, and she's a great ambassador.
She's from Texas. I've had a couple people on the show that got to meet her, and she, as advertised, she's just as smiley and kind and patient as day is long. So, yeah, we need folks like that, to keep that growth coming.
Yeah.
And to your point, we're going to need more officials for those girls. That's why working with Fred Feeney and Dawn Beresford for Wrestle Against Autism. Last time I checked, which was yesterday, 5 females. I only think we have 2 or 3 in the state. So we're going to double that up in one weekend, but that's not enough.
Right.
So we gotta, it's fun to talk about this stuff, but now then you gotta walk the walk too, right?
Yeah. Everyone put so much work into getting it sanctioned, and that was a lot of hard work. Now the real hard work starts is when you have the people that can back that up and give it the proper support going forward. They've handed the baton off to OHSAA, and now it's up to OHSAA and the members that are part of that to take that baton and carry it to the next leg. It's kind of like a relay race. So
yeah, it's hard work on both sides too. I mean, admin's got to figure out where are they going to wrestle. Can you get I don't know what's going on. I got an echo now. All right. Anyhow, yeah, I mean, it's work on everyone's side. You've got to figure out where are they going to wrestle? Are we wrestling in the same room? Who's going to coach? We've got to figure out the officiating, all of that stuff. So there's a lot. This is just the beginning.
Yeah.
And the more I've been getting to travel, doing all the tournaments all over the state, you're starting to see some people like, yeah, we're starting a club. We may only have 2 people, or we're starting a team, but we have to do it, and it's not like a bad, we have to do it. It's just like, no, if we don't, we're going to get passed by.
Right. It's coming. And you see that with Iowa hiring Clarissa Chung as their coach for female wrestling and really jumping in with both feet. So yeah. You see that with the programs really getting on early, so they can pick kind of the best ones from what's out there.
Yeah, and Ohio had a female national champ, Olivia Shore from Tiffin. So,
yeah,
as a freshman, I mean, she pinned and teched everyone. I mean, yeah, she's something else. So I mean, that's as a freshman. So that was really cool to see too. So it's definitely on the rise. I'm excited to see where it's going to go. It's going to save wrestling as we know it. It's going to undo a lot of the Title IX stuff that kind of happened.
I think so too.
And it's going to get rid of that easy out of, hey, we got to get rid of wrestling because it's not making any money. Now that's not an acceptable excuse any longer. So hopefully we won't have to be going Twitter warriors to save Stanford wrestling again or something like that anytime soon.
Or Olympic wrestling.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's wow. Yeah. We dodged the bullet there.
Yeah.
That was, yeah. I forgot about that. It was wow. Good thing I
now we just need them to bring back 10 weight classes.
Yeah. Beggars can't be choosers, but like, let's meet in the middle, right?
Yeah. So kind of getting back to stuff, it's the relationships really brings me back to, but also watching these kids develop. You're talking about the OAC stuff. You see the dads of the kids that you remember in high school, and their kids are wrestling, and some of them are being raised to be truly special. And if the desire is there for these kids to be truly special, it's fun to watch them develop. And then they'll enter into junior high, and then they'll enter into high school, and you'll see them progress. But then also you'll see a kid that as a freshman could barely, step on the mat without tripping and falling on his face. And you watch that kid progress through sophomore year, through junior year, and then maybe make it to districts or possibly the state. And it's really very rewarding to see kids make accomplishments like that. And I can remember at Napoleon at the districts watching a kid make it to state, and he gave his coach the biggest hug. And it was one of those moments where it was like, that's what it's about.
That's what it's all about. Yeah. I had 2 this year just with kids getting their first victories. I'm going to go talk about it at this banquet here in a little bit. And that's what it's all about, when it clicks, and then it's more fun to come to practice on Monday. And it's, not for me, I'm saying for the kids, right? I mean, getting that first W or making it to state obviously is a lot bigger, but yeah, and as an official too, those are good moments for us too. Like, you know what I mean? Last year when Max Hermes won his state title, we were in a high school, so he couldn't have done this at the shot. And maybe he did. I don't know. Max can do a lot of things, but he ran straight up after he got his hand raised, hugged his mom. Like, yeah, his dad's right in the corner. He said, "No, I'm going to mom." Like that's the cool. That's the cool.
He did kind of a Dylan Ness moment when Ness won the NCAA. I'll never forget that when he jumped up in the stands and gave his dad the biggest hug. That was amazing moments. There's so many amazing moments in the sport of wrestling.
Let's talk about amazing moments from this weekend, from yesterday. Oh,
yeah. Just watching the finals, I was amazed at the Joey Blaze scramble that lasted 1 minute and 20 seconds or better for him to secure the win. If you get a chance to watch that scramble, it is truly amazing. There were so many like little
lighter Blaze, right? Not Mark. It was Joey.
It was Joey. Yeah, it was the heavier Blaze.
Mark. Okay, Marcus is the younger one. Okay.
Marcus is 113. Yeah. So Joey Blaze is wrestling, and he's up by, I think, a point or two. And they get into this scramble, and the guy sitting behind me like, watch this. It'll go on, and they'll stop it for, a stalemate at 55 seconds. Well, they were scrambling, doing ankle passes, rolling through stuff. It got to 55 seconds, and they're still scrambling, still rolling through things. And I think the period ended. It was a full, from what I can remember, minute plus of scrambling, and it was truly amazing wrestling. And there was a moment where Joey was held in like near fall criteria, but you couldn't call control. Who has control? Nobody. So you can't earn near fall. So it was really an amazing scramble. If you get a chance to see it, anybody that's watching, dial it up.
I know Zeb's got it on there. I went by it today, work and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
But what else, man? I mean, I that was the first year I was supposed to be on the floor, I had media passes, and then I had a work commitment I got to go to in Texas, I should say. So I didn't get to see it. This is my first time I missed the final since I've been back in Ohio. So
I enjoy watching wrestling in the upper weights. When I wrestled as a freshman and sophomore, I wrestled 140, 145. As a junior and senior, I wrestled 189. So okay. I made a little jump.
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. So I enjoy the bigger guys. And so I enjoy watching those guys 65 and up wrestle. They, especially like the 190, those guys are so physical and so gifted and so athletic. They are just crazy fast. The Connolly match, again, at Division II for Tiff and Columbian, he wrestled Ashland. We have the Fricker duels in Defiance at the beginning of the season, and Ashland and Tiff and Columbian wrestled in the first round. And they were the second weight class up for the duel. And I saw it come, and I had no idea who the Ashland kid was, but I just wanted to officiate, an Ironman champ. So I get out there, and it winds up being a 3-2 match, and Connolly wins. And it was like, that was amazing. It's one of those things where you feel alive. You get adrenaline pumping, and you feel like you're in the match, and you're part of it, but you're not. You're there with the kids, and you see things, and you experience things that no one else can. And it's exhilarating. I got the idea that I'm getting better when I officiated a match at the Fricker Duels in 2014-ish, 2013. There were two kids that wrestled, and they were both very good. And later in the season, they wound up wrestling each other in the semifinals at state. And I was like, I had those guys early in the season, and I did just fine. I can do this. So that was kind of a reassuring for me, reaffirming that, I can do this too. So from that point going forward is when I really started, like I said, going to becoming more of a part of our association, concentrating on the things that will make me better. And then also you get encouragement from people. Like several years ago, I was at a sectional tournament, and I was an assistant referee for an official that had been around forever. And he did several state tournaments, very highly respected. And there was a situation where a kid got picked up and put back down pretty hard, and he was injured. And the coach came out, and I knew him, and he wanted it to be called a slam. And I was like, I'm the assistant. This guy's done how many state tournaments? What can I say? Yeah. And he looked up at me and he goes, "Butch, you're better than this." And that was one of those like defining moments too. It's like, you know what, I need to be better than this. So that's another, stepping stone on to where I am now. And I think I shared with you a story about at Rossford, at their tournament that they had. I was doing a finals match, I believe, and I wanted to, I got into a really bad habit of, if there's a change of control, I would start near fall count before I would signal two. And I would get burned from time to time. And it's one of those things that I really tried to work on, that I need to not do that. So it was with Oak Harbor, and I reverted back to a bad mechanic and started a swipe for a near fall, and then they rolled through. And so after the situation, the coach called me to the table,
George,
and he asked me, it's the big guy with the beard. So he asked me, he goes, "You counted near fall on that?" And I owned up to it. And I said, "Listen, I've got a bad mechanic. It's a habit that I'm trying to break, and you caught me." And I explained it that way. And he said, "All right, I can buy that." So then he went back to the chair. And transparency, honesty, that sort of thing. It's really helped me to gain some credibility with some coaches too. They see that I'm trying, and I'm just trying to be the best version of an official that I can be.
Yeah, but you're pretty even keel all the time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like you're positive, you're pretty even keel. Like, not that I want to, but calling you to the table and calling someone else a little bit different. But I like what you did there. Is like, it sounds like you thought for a little bit there and just were honest. Whereas a lot of times I feel like, and it's a product of how it's been done. But I feel like anytime that you're calling someone to the table, it's like, this is going to end. I'm not going to win. And it's probably going to end poorly. And it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like if officials, if we can understand that we do make mistakes, yes, I make mistakes like daily. And if coaches can understand officials make mistakes, they also do too. And we can all just go and say, let's just get this right. Not about my ego, not about yours, because it's really about the two kids that are on the middle of the mat. Let's just get it right. You know, it doesn't matter who looks smarter or, hey, I made a mistake. Fine, you're allowed to. But just get the match right.
And again, you're, like I said, you're telling the story of the match with your mechanics and your abilities. So you're not there to, sway the match one way or the other. You're just there telling the story. You're a storyteller if you think of it that way. Like so that. It's just what it is. And I just really enjoy so many aspects of officiating. And like I was saying, you get into those hot matches and it really gets the juices flowing. And I'm sure Walter will say the same thing. Those hot matches gets the adrenaline flowing. You feel like you're alive. Like so few things in life does anymore as an old guy like myself. So
you feel alive, kind of like you have the chute looking over your shoulder from behind you or something. Like Frank Johnson. Yeah. We couldn't go a whole hour without giving out the chute. Well, dude, I really, I told you a while ago I wanted to get you on the show, and I'm glad that we could do it. It's not going to be the last time if I have my way.
Okay. We can talk about lots of stuff.
Yeah, I think I've got a lot of ideas. You know what to say about that. So I got to run through some filters and make sure that they're good ideas. I didn't say they're good. I said they're ideas. But yeah, man, I want to catch up with you, even if it's not on the show, talk about your NCAA experience too. And hopefully I'll see you. Hopefully it won't be as long as it was last time. So thank you for what you do. And got anything else you want to make sure you get out?
Just, quickly, they tell us every year that we have a responsibility to be physically fit. And I will say that 6-7 years ago, I got up to 220 and I was finding myself about a half a step slow. And I was wondering if this is the beginning of the end. And so where I work, they put in a gym and we have a full-time trainer. So I work out 4 days a week with him. And that has made the biggest difference, I think, in recovering from surgeries. I had neck fusion surgery a few years ago. I have C4, 5, 6, and 7 fused together. I had a blown out shoulder from when I fell. And the gym has done everything to help elevate me also to where I'm at to be physically fit and be able to keep up with these kids because they aren't getting slower. No. I was getting slower. And so I had to really look hard at myself too and just try to be that person to still keep up with them and I focus on legs and core. That's the big things I focus on because I don't walk on my hands. I run around at these kids on my feet. So, and that's really something too.
You're onto something there though. So when I've had the folks that, the officials that have done college, and I had them on before the season started, and they're like, yeah, I'm in my second month of training just to get on the mat, like legit training. So, I mean, if you have to do it at that level, you have to do it some capacity at this level too. It is a very active job. You're not stopping every down like in football and everything else. And you talk about minute scrambles, that's a lot of moving, and 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day standing on your feet on a hardwood floor too. That's not good for your back too. So having a good core could probably.
And I talked to a coworker about wrestling. I can say I run around in circles doing burpees all day. So.
It's a good one. Yeah. Well, let's not advertise it that way. It might be a little harder to get it fixed.
It's all good. It's all good.
Cut that. Hey, Butch, thank you so much, man. Stay on. I want to chat with you a little bit after we hang up.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good, my friend.